So, how on earth do you go from studying rocks, things that are millions of years old, to helping people with their most urgent, right now problems? It sounds like a crazy jump, right? But today, we're going to dig into this really cool career pivot. And honestly, it teaches all of us a huge lesson about how the skills we already have can be used in totally new ways in this wild, changing world.
I mean, really, what could geology possibly have to do with social work? It feels like they're from two different planets, doesn't it? You've got hard science on one side, social science on the other. But, and this is the amazing part, we're about to see that the bridge between them isn't just real, it's actually becoming more and more essential like every single day.
All right, so first things first. Before we can even think about building that bridge, we've got to understand the ground on the other side. So let's take a quick look at what the world of social work is all about.
Okay, let's get right into this. A lot of people think social work is just about, wanting to help people. But it is so much more than that. It's actually built on this rock-solid, non-negotiable ethical framework. Think of it like a mandatory code of conduct that shapes every single decision a social worker makes. And you know what's interesting? For someone coming from a science background, this should feel weirdly familiar. It's kind of like the moral version of the scientific method. It makes sure that everything you do is principled, it's purposeful, and it's thought through.
And the scope of this work is just huge. It really operates on 3 different levels. You've got the micro level, that's the one-on-one stuff we usually think of, like counseling. Then there's the meso level, which is all about working with groups and communities. But here's the kicker. It's the macro level. We're talking big picture stuff like changing policy, advocacy, research. That's where someone who's a natural systems thinker, someone trained to see how all the pieces fit together, can really find their place.
Okay, so how do these two totally different worlds actually connect? This is the fun part. This is where we start building that bridge between earth science and social justice.
Well, the most direct link is this really cool emerging field called eco-social work. And it's based on a pretty simple but powerful idea. You just can't separate people's well-being from the health of our planet. It basically says that when the environment gets damaged, think pollution or climate change, it doesn't affect everyone equally. It hits the most vulnerable communities the hardest. And that, right there, makes protecting the environment a fundamental issue of social justice.
And what's so cool is that both professions are kind of moving towards each other at the same time. You've got social work starting to look outward at the environment, and at the exact same time, geosciences are being pushed to look inward to think about the human impact of their work. So these two fields are converging, right? They're creating this amazing new space for a professional who can be a translator, someone who really speaks both languages.
This quote just nails it. It brings us to a really important point. There's actually no such thing as a natural disaster. Think about it. There are natural hazards, the earthquake, the flood, the landslide. That's the geology part. But that hazard only turns into a full-blown disaster when it smacks into a community that's vulnerable. And figuring out what makes a community vulnerable, well, that is classic social work.
So what this means is that someone who has both of these skill sets is incredibly valuable through every single stage of managing a disaster. I mean, they can use their geology knowledge to help figure out where it's safe to build. Then, they can use their social work skills to make sure the plans for that community are fair and equitable. During a crisis, they can offer support to people while also understanding the ongoing geological risks, like aftershocks. And then in the recovery phase, they can help rebuild communities in a way that's not just physically stronger, but socially more just. It's the whole package.
Okay, that all sounds great in theory, but how do you actually do it? How do you make this career change happen? Well, let's get practical. And the very first step, the most important one, is all about looking at the skills you already have in a completely new light.
This table here it's basically a Rosetta Stone. It's a translator. It shows you how to take the technical language of geology and translate it into the language of social work. So, analysis of complex geological systems, that's just a fancy way of saying advanced systems thinking. Geological fieldwork and data collection, that becomes methodical observation and evidence gathering. You see, you're not throwing away your old skills at all. You're just aiming them at a whole new set of problems.
But look, this journey isn't just about thinking differently. There are some very real practical things to consider. Let's use Australia as a case study for a minute. The money side of things is a big deal. We're talking about significant financial planning. As of May 2024, you literally have to prove you have access to almost $30,000 Australian, and that's just to cover your living costs for 1 year. That doesn't even include tuition or flights.
And we're not just talking about sitting in a classroom either. This is serious, hands-on training. To actually get your qualification, you have to prove you can walk the walk. In Australia, an accredited Master of Social Work program requires a minimum of 1,000 hours of supervised fieldwork. That's a huge commitment. It's basically a full-on apprenticeship that makes sure you are 100% ready to hit the ground running the day you graduate.
So after all that money and all those hours, what's the payoff? Is it worth it? Well, let's stick with our Australian example and look at what's waiting at the end of this journey. And what's waiting is a career in a field where you are seriously in demand. And I'm not just saying that. The Australian government's own numbers are pretty staggering. They're projecting job growth for social workers of over 23%. They've officially rated it as a very strong demand job. Get this, it's one of the top 20 most needed jobs in the whole country. So yeah, they need people. And financially, it's a solid career path. New graduates can expect to start around 80,000 Australian dollars a year, and that can climb well into six figures as you get more experience. But here's a really important little detail. The pay is often even better in regional areas. And that little fact is going to be super important for what we talk about next.
And this is the real game changer. Because social work is considered such a critical profession, getting that qualification opens up these direct, high-priority pathways to getting permanent residency in Australia. It puts you right at the front of the line for their skilled migration program.
And this is where the whole strategy just clicks into place. For an international graduate, the smartest, most efficient path is to get a job in a regional area. Why? Well, like we said, the pay is often higher, it gives you the 1 year of work experience you need to get extra points on your visa application, and it makes you a perfect candidate for a state government to nominate you. It creates this really clear, totally achievable pathway to becoming a permanent resident. So, you see, this story about a geologist becoming a social worker, it's about so much more than just one career change. It's really a masterclass in seeing the hidden potential in what we already know how to do. It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? What unexpected skills do you have? And what kind of totally different problems could you solve if you just looked at them through a brand new lens?